So our next speaker, we're a little bit behind here, but I'm super excited to bring him up. We share friendship with Denis Waitley, and Les Brown is a friend of his. Tony Robbins worked for him at some point. And I was talking to him at the lake when we first connected. And one of my favorite things about what he was saying is the beliefs behind the beliefs that, whenever you're stuck as a coach, as a leader, as in life, period, ready to go to the next level, especially for people like us that geek out on what am I not seeing? What am I not seeing? Where is it? And we put ourselves in those things. Sometimes it can get even trickier, right? To find those rackets that are running beneath the surface. So Jim is very masterful at helping people get unblocked, Jim Britt, with their beliefs. And so we're going to bring him up so he can do some work with us. Hello, Jim. Welcome.
Hi, Adora. How are you?
Magnificent. Good to see you.
Great cause you're behind. My wife founded a nonprofit about 7 years ago to stop child trafficking, and ran that for about 5 years and turned it over to somebody else. But it did a lot of great things with that.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to meet your wife. That's what I got to say.
There we go. No, there we go. All right. Well, it's great to be here. I was just thinking this morning about what I wanted to share with the audience here, and was thinking back to when I first kind of got into the personal development space. But I started out, my first business venture was in a direct sales company, and I'll never forget what I went through there. My first year, I didn't do so well. In fact, the training I got was, your job is talking to people. They said, if you talk a little, you'll earn a little. If you talk a lot, you're going to earn a lot. And I said, oh, how much is a lot? And they said 10 a day. And we didn't have internet or social media or any of that. We didn't even have a brochure. So my job was to go out to talk to 10 people every day, which I did for a year. And over 3,650 people my first year, and I made one sale. So I got rejected over 3,650 times. So people ask me today how I handle rejection, and I said, I've already done that. I don't need to do any more. So, but at the end of that first year, I had lost everything. My home was in foreclosure. Actually, it had already been foreclosed. I had a notice on the door from the sheriff saying I had to be out in 5 days. I had both of my vehicles had been repoed. All of my furniture, most of it anyway, had been repoed. And I had a wife and a child. We had no food in the house, and I had 15 cents in my pocket. But I saw other people becoming successful at that business. And I stopped for a moment and I thought, well, maybe I need to go back and work in the factory where I used to work, or maybe I need to go back pumping gas the way I used to before the factory. And I thought about that for about 10 seconds. And I said, nope, I'm not going to quit. And, it was like time, fate, circumstances, whatever you want to call it, all came together. And over the next 12 months, I earned myself almost $500,000 in that business. Plus the one sale I made led me to another opportunity that I earned almost $500,000. So I went from 15 cents in my pocket to pretty much millionaire within 1 year. And it taught me a valuable lesson. It taught me that the foundation of everything is a decision. And it's not a belief. All beliefs are false until you decide they're true, then they're only true for you. And so many people make those beliefs true when they're really not true. It's like I could have decided that my belief was that business was hard to build, and I couldn't be successful at it, and I could never make any money at it. I could believe that, but I didn't, because I had a foundation that I built that belief upon. So over the years, I've worked with a lot of millionaires, billionaires. In fact, took a camera crew around and interviewed 12 mega millionaires. They all had to be worth at least 200 million. They had to have started with nothing, and then were all in different industries. And I was shocked to find out about the third interview that the last two plus that one all had some traits in common. Then I started to really watch it through the rest of the interviews, and they all had the same traits in common. So what I'm going to share with you here quickly is the traits that they had in common that anybody could develop. I even looked at myself later in life and looked at it, and I thought, well, hey, I've got those traits. And I think if you can develop these traits, I don't think it, I know it, that you cannot not be successful at whatever it is you're attempting to accomplish here. So trait number one is that you have to have a desire to change. Now, you may think that's pretty simple because you probably asked thousands of people on any street corner anywhere in the world if they want to make more money, and the answer would probably be yes. Even mega millionaires are going to say yes. So almost everybody has a desire to make more money, to be more successful, to have more things, to live a better life. But how many really do? And I discovered something years ago, about 35 years ago, actually, that we all have a core belief that we've developed about ourselves based upon the programming and the habit patterns that we've developed. And that core belief acts like an anchor that keeps us stuck. Now, we may have certain things that we're really good at. Some people are really good at making money. Some people are really good at staying healthy. Some are good in relationships, but very few people are good in all of the areas of your life. So what I discovered is that, as humans, we get programmed, and some are, we have in common, like walking and talking and riding a bicycle or swimming or, things that we all drive in a car, things that we all have in common that we've been programmed to do, and they become a habit pattern. And I think those are probably stored like right at the surface of your subconscious because you don't even have to think about them to access them. We have probably hundreds of them. How you put your pants on in the morning, which leg goes in first, things like that. Simple habits that would be difficult, quite frankly, to live our lives without. But those habits keep us stuck. And yes, everybody has a desire. And you've probably heard the 80-20 rule. The 80-20, 20% of the people do 80% of the production and so on. Well, also 20% of the people follow through with what they say they're going to do, and 80% do not. They all have a desire. They all see the problem, but they have that anchor that keeps them stuck. And so you've got to take your desire to the next step because desire is not enough. I call that a red hot poor person. You got to take it to the decision-making step. You got to decide what you want to do that's so firm that nothing less than that will do. In other words, let's say a decision, let's say this circle is a firm decision that nothing less than that will do. The 80%ers leave a little opening in that circle, and that's their escape route. That's their excuse as to why it didn't work. So you've got to close that gap, and you got to make a decision that doesn't allow for turning back, because a decision creates a mindset, and a mindset determines how you show up, and it determines how the world shows up to support you. So that decision that I made many, many years ago was that I was going to make that business a success. And I said I'm going to get wealthy doing it. And I didn't even know what wealthy was back then. But $1 million was a lot of money. But 15 cents was not much. But I never lost my desire, and I never lost my decision. And yes, there's certain things that just don't work, and you got to bow out. And some people hang on too long out of desperation, hoping it's going to work. But see, I knew it would work because I saw other people doing it. So that decision creates that mindset. And everybody's got a mindset. People say, well, how do you know what your mindset is? I said, look at any area of your life. I don't care if it's health or wealth or relationships or whatever it might be. We all have a mindset, and that mindset has brought us where we are today. It's called the law of cause and effect. Now, you may not like that. You may not even believe it, but you don't have to believe it because the law of cause and effect works 100% of the time. We cause the effect based on the decisions that we've made. So I would encourage you, when you have a desire to change and you see something that needs changing or you want to change, make a firm decision to get on with it. And the next step is taking action. And I know there's a lot of people, they're getting ready. They're getting ready to take action. They're getting ready to get going. They're just as soon as, they have their business cards, or as soon as they have their website up, or as soon as they get their app developed, or as soon as something, they're going to get started. But the mark of a good entrepreneur, there's always something you can do in the process of doing other things that need to be done, maybe, or you want to have done. There's always something you can do now to move yourself forward, to move that era forward. So take action. And when you take action, what's going to happen is that you're going to come face to face with a little discomfort, a little bit of pain, because the you that wants to go from where you are now to where you want to be, that you can't make it. You've got to become a different you. So you've got to, in order to accomplish more, let's say financially, then you've got to become a different person in order to attract that, or in order to create that, in order just to have a better, healthy body. You've got to make a decision, and you've got to follow through, and you're going to experience some pain in the process of getting there. So what happens though, when we come face to face with our own comfort zone, that's when we start to weigh out things. That's where that 80% turn tail and run. We weigh out the pain. Let's say you want to get healthy. You want to lose 50 pounds or something. And you start to go on a diet, or you start to exercise, and you buy a gym membership and those things, and you start to weigh out the pain of changing. Got to go to the gym every day, got to work out for an hour, got to work out for 30 minutes, whatever it is, got to eat this or eat that, and not eat this and eat that. And you weigh out the pain of changing, and you go, well, I think eating potato chips and sitting on the sofa with the remote is so much less painful. So we choose that. Or we run in face to face with rejection, just like I did back when I first started, 3,650 times. I could have said, in fact, I look back on it and go, was I stupid or what? I mean, what really drove me to do that? And I think it was inspiration and desperation. I didn't want to live the way I was living, and I wanted more in my life. And I refused to give up until I got that more. So you've got to be willing to experience some pain. And the next step is really critical. And I was on a panel a few years back, and somebody asked me, what one thing have you learned over the years that's been the most important thing to the exclusion of everything else? And I didn't even hesitate. I said, the ability to let go. There's power in letting go. People think, well, you let go and people walk all over you. No, that's not true. You let go and you're back in your power. Because if you're hanging on to something that disempowers you, then you're out of your power. So if you're hanging on to worry, or is this really going to work, or you're not sure you believe it's going to work, or your belief is not strong enough, the decision you made has that opening at the top, you've got to move forward. You got to execute. And when you do, you're going to come face to face with things that create pain. And you got to be willing to let go. You got to be willing to not give it any energy, just to back off and let go. And people say, well, it's really hard to let go. Well, I disagree with that. So let's say I've got this mouse in my hand. Does that mean I need to hold it in my hand for the rest of my life? And the answer is no, I can lay it down. I don't have to give it any energy until I want to. So when you're come face to face with something stopping you, like a counter belief that's going to take you in the other direction, then that's when you need to stop take a deep breath, not give it any energy, and continue to move in the direction you want to go. So every action you take from this point forward, once you've decided what you want, every action you take is going to move you toward what you want or away from it. Success at anything is really that simple. And the only thing that really exists is right now in the moment. Not tomorrow, not yesterday. Yesterday's past, it's gone. Tomorrow's not real. Now, you can plan for tomorrow, but you know what? Personally, I don't set goals. I don't write things down. I make decisions and follow through. I don't have a vision board. I don't need to write it down. I can remember it. So, but that's just me. If you need to write it down, then I'd say write it down. But, it's simple. The power of letting go. And then the last thing I want to share with you is something I discovered, 35 years ago, roughly. I don't remember the day, but I was on the phone with a friend of mine, and we used to read some of the same books. In fact, he'd send me a book, and I'd send him books. And so we'd buy 2 books at a time and send one to the other if we thought it was something really in depth that we wanted to discuss. So we were on the phone one day discussing a page out of a book. We spent like an hour on that page because it was really an in-depth writing. And once we finished, he says, Jim, he said, what do you think the word resourceful means? And I said, man, I don't know. Maybe being more productive, or maybe using your imagination. Or I said, I don't really know. I said, why? He said, well, it's just an interesting word. And I said, yeah, I guess so. And we talked a little longer and we hung up. And later that day, I was on my way home and I couldn't quit thinking about the word resourceful. I just kept over and over and over in my mind, resourceful. What does that mean, resourceful? And it was like somebody telling you, don't think about a pink elephant, and all you can think about is a pink elephant. So I get home, and this was before the internet. So I pick up the dictionary and I look up the word resourceful. And it is defined as, once again, full of source. I thought, that's pretty interesting, depending on what you think source means. And so I looked up the keyword source. And the definition was where all things originate. Not some things, but all things. Now, depending on, again, what you think source is. But I thought it was pretty powerful. And so I kept looking for other definitions of source. And I'd go to bookstores. At one point, I just searched out all the bookstores in the metropolitan area near me and would go around looking for that word in a different type of dictionary. And I never found anything that was different. And so one day I was in the UK, and I was at a small little village called Chester. And I was walking down the sidewalk, and I see the back door of a building, and it had a sign over the top that said antique books. And I'm always intrigued by old books. I love buying old books, and just that writing is just it's amazing. It's different but amazing. So I walk in the back door, and the first book I see is a dictionary, and it's about this thick. It's like a foot thick, and it was all tattered and torn. And I wished I'd looked to see when it was published. I don't know. It looked old, but who knows? But I opened it up. In fact, it had a sign on it that said, do not open. But I thought that was for people in the UK. So I decided I would open it carefully. And I was prepared to buy it, I think. I don't know if it was what it would cost. But anyway, I carefully opened it to the S's. And I looked up the word source. And I saw some of the same things I'd seen before. But all of a sudden, one definition popped out. It said source, love. I went, wow, resourceful, once again, full of love. And I thought about that for a little bit. And I thought, wow. I thought everything originates in love. And I thought, well, how does that apply to business or to your personal life? And I thought about that for a while, and I thought, well, you start a new project, just like Adora and her husband. you can tell that they both have a lot of passion for helping traffic victims. They fall in love with that, with helping people. And when you start a new project, when you go to write a book, you go to create something new, you make a decision and you fall in love with that. Now, over time, because of your comfort zone continuing to pop up in your face, the pain of that, a lot of people back away. They fall out of love. In fact, I looked at that and I thought, wait a minute, there's a flaw here. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I thought, okay, if everything exists in love, where does fear come from? And I was puzzled by that for about 10 minutes. And I kept thinking about it. Where does fear come from if all things exist in love? And suddenly it hit me. We fall in love with fear. Think about that. We fall in love with fear. We create that and we put passion into fear. And that's what blocks us. The fear of changing, the fear of going to the next level, the fear of the pain it's going to cause. We fall in love with fear and we end up creating more of that in our lives. So if you fall in love with what it is you're doing, that's the key. And stay in love. And the way to do that is the power of letting go and keeping yourself in the moment. Now, I was in Toronto a couple of years back, maybe 4 years back now. And I was walking down Yonge Street. It's kind of a big tourist area, big wide sidewalks. And my friend and I, we had an event going, and we went out during lunch break and took a walk. And we walked out maybe a mile or two. And suddenly we saw that we were getting close to time to start again. Of course, they couldn't start without us because we were the featured. So, but anyway, we started walking really fast to get back to the hotel. And I'm pretty tall. I'm 6'4". My friend was about 6'2". So we had long legs and we're walking really fast. And suddenly I feel presence on my shoulder. And it was like somebody walking in step with me. And he was so close that I could actually smell the guy. And I was about to turn around and go, hey buddy, back off a little bit. But just as I started to turn around, he started talking. And he had two different voices. So one voice said, and God created man. And the other voice said, yeah, I know that. And then his first voice again said, well, then God created woman. And he said, yeah, I know that too. And then he said, and God created fruit. And the other voice said, fruit? What does fruit have to do with anything? And the other voice said, well, inside the fruit, there's a seed. And he said, if you plant it, it will grow. And if you don't, it won't. Now, what happens when you plant a seed? It may grow, but if you don't keep it watered, keep it nourished, take care of it, pick the weeds out, it may not grow very well, or it may not grow at all. So you got to nurture that to make it grow. That's what a farmer does. And you've got to do the same with anything it is you want to accomplish. So if you plant that seed in love, it's going to grow as long as you keep the weeds out, the weeds of negativity, doubt, worry, uncertainty, lack of confidence. All of those things we got to keep out. We got to keep moving forward in order to accomplish what we want. So fall in love with it. And my question is really, are you in love with what you want to accomplish? Or is it just a one-night stand? So I don't know where I am on time here. Let me take a look. I'm getting pretty close, a few minutes. So just to go back again, real quickly, you've got to have a desire to change. You've got to make a decision to change, one that doesn't allow for anything less than that. You've got to take action, and you got to take action daily. And when you do, you're gonna meet with some failures. You're not gonna fail, but you're gonna meet with some failings. You're gonna meet with some things that didn't work. When I went out and started talking to 10 people a day, I didn't know what I was doing. And a fellow that taught me later what I was doing wrong. He said, "How do you know if you have a viable prospect?" And I said, I don't know. I guess if they buy from you. And he said, "No, how do you know if they're even going to buy from you?" I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "That's obvious." and so he said, "You got to arrive at 3 destinations." He said, "Number 1, do they have a pain or a problem? Number 2, do they want to solve it? And number 3, can you solve it? If all 3 of those are in concert, then you have a viable prospect." And he said, "Now, how do you know if they're going to buy from you?" I said, I don't know. Or how do you know if they're going to have if they have those 3 things? I said, I don't know. He said, "That's obvious also." And he said, "You got to start asking questions and listening." And I would say ask questions to yourself and listen. If you're a speaker, get in front of the mirror and ask yourself, what's it like having someone like me speaking to me? What's it like for my audience? What's it like for me? What's it like for my children having a parent like me? What's it like for my husband or wife to have a spouse like me? What's it like for people I coach, if you're a coach? What's it like for those people being coached by me? You see, when you look at yourself and ask questions and listen, you'll come up with the answers. And the same thing with people. If you ask questions and listen, you can figure out people's pain. They will share it with you. And I even asked him back then, I said, "What kind of questions should I ask?" He said, "It doesn't matter. Just start a conversation." He said, "If you say hi, what do you think you're going to get back?" I said, "Probably a hi or hello." And I said, or he said, "So what if you say, 'Hi, how are you?' What do you think you're going to get back?" I said, "Probably I'm just fine. How are you?" Or "Thanks for asking. How are you?" I said, "Now you got a conversation going." You see, ask questions and listen. And people will, if you're truly, truly interested in that person. And what that fellow taught me back then, he said, "Jim, if you live your life this way," he said, "you'll never lack for money, you'll never lack for friends, and you'll build a network worldwide one day." And he said, every time you meet a person, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, who it is. It may be business, it may not be business. It might be at a wedding, at an airplane, or, it could be anywhere, church. Always be thinking, what can I do to help that person? See, if you're always thinking that, that puts out a great vibe to the world and makes the world a better place. So have a desire, make a decision, take action, step out of your comfort zone, learn to let go, and plant what you want in love. Fall in love with it. Create the passion. Thanks for joining me here. I think I'm just about wrapped up here.
Awesome. Hi again, Jim. I'm loving the comments. People are getting so much here from you. If you have a question for Jim, go ahead and put it in the comments. We're going to ask that. And I'll also let Sam come up and ask a question. I saw him taking notes the whole time in the green room. He's one of our trainers at Body Legacy. Do you have a question, Sam? You're muted, by the way.
I probably have 1,000 questions for you, Jim. But I guess I'll pick one. I think the thing that I would ask you from my perspective of curiosity would be, I loved how you said falling in love with your decision. You kind of have like the no going back mentality, right? And so if you were to give maybe any advice or direction for somebody that it's inevitable, once you make that decision, you're going to have to take action to make anything happen. But it's inevitable that some of those actions that you have to take are going to have pushback. What advice would you give to someone in terms of dealing with that pushback as you take the action towards going towards your decision and creating?
Well, I'd say the pushback, it depends on the pushback, but it's basically taking a step to the left and keep moving forward, and understand that you're going to get pushback. You're going to have doubts along the way. You're going to have things that don't work, and you just can't allow that to throw you off of the decision that you've made. So there's really a lot of power to look at it for objectively and ask yourself, if I buy into this pushback, is this going to take me in the direction I want to go or not? And if it's not, then don't do it. It's as simple as that. Keep moving forward, because there's 1,000 reasons why a person would quit. But you only need one to move forward, and that's to stay connected and keep moving.
I have to also thank you, because you kind of made a light bulb turn on in my brain, right, of the analogies that you were using, but then you got to the point of, where does fear come from, and people falling in love with fear. And when the light bulb came on, Adora was not lying. I just started writing all this stuff down. So I look forward to seeing what your wisdom, where it takes me moving forward, because it was impactful for sure.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So if you have the time, I think what I would like to do is,
I do want you to ask another question and take any questions from the comments, because Jim, we really wanted to give more time, but our schedule is back to back. So I want to, since we have the space, let's ask a few more questions.
Okay, so I actually have another question that I would ask you. So once you became successful, you got going, right? You went from, cents in your pocket to, not overnight, but let's say within a year, millionaire, and you worked and you were building. Did you ever get to a point, it's not that you would fall out of love of what you were doing, but did you ever get to a point where you're like, hey, I've done enough? Or did you always have that maybe burning inside of you that kept you going? Is there a such thing as enough, I guess would be the question?
Well, if it's money, I'd say there is enough. But if it's my profession, then I'd, just like somebody asked me just the other day, they said, how far down this road do you plan to go? I said, till the road ends. And, I'm one that I don't get down. I really don't. I don't buy into trying to control things over which I have no control, which creates stress. It's almost the number one stressor. And I love doing what I do. I love helping people. I've got methods of helping people discover what that belief is, that core belief that keeps them stuck, and how to take the emotional charge off of it, which it'll become like a file on your hard drive. It's there, maybe, but it's not in your face every day. So you can move forward with much greater ease. And that's really the key, is if you can figure out that core belief, which is not hard to do, but it's hard to do if you don't see it. It's a blind spot for most people. In fact, I would say it's a blind spot for pretty much everybody. But the more you whittle away at it, the more you let go of things that you can't control, the more it becomes visible that you can work with it.
I love that. So Laura actually had a great question that I'll ask you, which is, I always want to know, how do you believe when you don't, whatever it is? So like you fall in love, you make the decision, but you're struggling with your belief, maybe from the pushback. How do you get yourself to realign with it? Or is it at a certain point that you have to, like you said, take a step left or right and pivot? Maybe what you think you believe in, you're only kind of on point with it. Maybe you have to kind of hone in a little more on your belief.
Yeah, if we really look at it, if some people say, boy, I hope I can do this. Well, hope is defined as to entertain an outcome. People say, well, I'm going to try. Well, try is defined as to struggle. And then, well, I believe I can do it. Well, belief is defined as to have an opinion. And to know is to be certain. That's why the decision is so important, is that takes you to a level of knowing. I just know I can do this. And you keep moving forward no matter what. But a belief, all beliefs are false. they're all false until you decide they're true. Then they're only true for you. And, you know, I was challenged many times with that. But it's your own personal opinion. So if you can take it to a level of knowing, that's really key, and lose those other words like hope and try and belief. Just take it to a level of knowing.
Well, one thing I've noticed about individuals who are very successful is I think they have a very strong understanding of the power of their words, and in terms of what they're projecting out into reality, but also what they project inward as well. And that's one thing that I want to compliment. Just with the way you said, knowing versus belief are two very different things. You need to know that you can do it, not believe that you can do it.
Know is to be certain.
Yes. I'm going to have that on a giant poster on my wall. I guarantee it by the end of the day. So I appreciate that.
So awesome. Great questions. Great questions, Sam. We have one from Lisa. Jim, how much should you wait for your achievements? Time is an essence, and I'm tired of starting over.
Well, that depends on you. Time is really our only asset, and we go on a shopping spree with our time every day. Depends. I mean, I guess it's, what do you buy with your time? Are you really taking action? Are you creating what I call busyness, which looks like you're taking a lot of action? Or are you really on task? Are you doing things that's going to move that needle? That's going to take you in the direction you want to go. That's really the key. And people say that patience is a virtue. I disagree. I think impatience is a virtue. Get on with it quickly. You don't want to hang around just waiting for it to happen. You've got to be the one that takes action and moves forward. Just do something every day, a little bit every day. If you don't have a lot of time, a little bit every day will move you toward it. And some point, it'll just explode for you. Was it easy for me when I started? Heck no, man. When I got into the speaking business, I connected up at that direct sales company. What really came out of that was I met Jim Rohn. He was the trainer in that company. And later we ended up as business partners. And I did such a good job promoting him the first year that I had to start speaking. I had to get out there and start, speaking. And it scared me to death. And I thought the first year, man, I didn't know if I was going to make it. I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. But I'll never forget the day that I lost all of my fear. And I had so much confidence in what I was doing that my first thought was, instead of being nervous about what the audience is going to think of me, my first thought was, from that day forward, was let me at them, because I've got something that's going to get inside them and light them up, wake them up, and get them moving forward. That's always my objective. So keep moving and have impatience.
Awesome. Well, Jim, before we wrap up and let you go, first of all, just thank you. It's nice to meet you. I know we've been in connection for a little bit now, and this makes it more official.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I shared with you that I was living in a boarded up home with no electricity. And instead of investing in electricity, I invested in an Herbalife kit and met Jim Rohn on a Walkman radio at 18. And he was giving that talk about the set of the sail, and that you're headed toward a destiny. And if you wanted to change that destiny, get mentors. And I was like, oh crap, I'm already the town scandal. This will never work. And then he talked about the library being full of them. And I read over 75 books that year and listened to so many audio programs. Tony Robbins was the next, sold me on constant and never ending improvement. And so that was my origin point for waking up into entrepreneurship and the self-development world.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, Tony worked for me for about between 4 and 5 years. And he was a great salesperson, and he developed a knack for speaking as well. And then he went out and started his own business, and I kind of helped him a little bit there when he first started. And I guess my only mistake was I should have taken a percentage of him.
Right. That's how I felt about the movie The Secret. I got Denis Waitley and Dr. DeMartini. I was like, I should have at least had my name run in the credits, but we had no idea when we were doing that. Live and learn.
Yeah, Denis is a great friend of mine. Denis is 90 years old now, but he's just sharp as can be.
He bought a rowing machine because he was, I just love it. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I love and appreciate you, all kinds of comments here. And you'll want to make sure to grab the richcode1.com. Go to the richcode1.com and the richcode2.com to get your gifts from Jim, and we will send that in our replay. And just remember, anytime you go to the VIP upgrade page on the day a speaker's on, only the people live know this, but you can click on the image and there's a link there too if you didn't get to write it down fast enough. Go ahead and drop it in the chat one more time, team, and lots of love, Jim.
All right. Thank you so much, Adora. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.